Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. This episode is brought to you in partnership with Wanderers Wealth. One of the greatest challenges and also one of the greatest opportunities for digital nomads, expats, people who are building businesses abroad is in the world of international taxes. It's not the most fun subject to talk about, but it's one of the most important and confusing that I hear about all the time from those of you in the audience. So I've had Kathy on the show before. She's the CEO of Wanderers Wealth. And afterwards, I became a customer of hers because her global tax strategy design course is incredible. It literally walks you through all the steps that you need to take in order to take advantage of the international tax system that is set up to actually help those of us that are living this international lifestyle. So it's highly recommended. You can find the link in the show notes for her global tax strategy design course. Check it out and let me know what you think. My guest today is Peter Fabor. He is the founder and CEO of Surf Office, which is one of the worldwide leaders in retreat planning companies around the world. So they actually take and lead other companies on their retreats, which is becoming a super popular thing in the future of work discussion. So also something that I'm really passionate about and love focusing on. So it was really cool to sit down with one of the true leaders in this space. They lead teams all around the world. And Peter himself is a seasoned digital nomad and expat that has moved to a variety of countries in different places around the world. So it was a lot of fun to talk with him, learned a lot, and really enjoyed getting to know more about the origins of Surf Office, a company that I've been following for a long time. So thank you to Peter for joining us and sharing so much of his story with us. I hope you enjoy. Please help me in welcoming Peter to About Abroad. So you're currently where? You're on vacation, right? You're taking some time away?
Yeah, staying in a little Eastern Europe country called Moldova, because that's where my wife is from, and we are visiting the family here, and I'm working from the countryside using the mobile Moldavian data.
Nice. You're tethered to your mobile device for this call then, huh?
Yeah, I just bought, it's extremely cheap, by the way, here. Like if anyone is considering to visit Moldova and work from here, I just bought 60 gigs of data for €4 at the airport, and it's super fast. We have this interview using the Zoom. We are recording the podcast, and it works without any problem. So from my experience, it's the fastest and cheapest mobile data, or let's say the value for money, what I experience in Europe working remotely.
That's insane. I always get people asking me, like I occasionally work from my camper van and generally like getting out into like kind of the off the beaten track, I guess you'd say, into some like pretty rural areas and can work. And I've even actually recorded a couple podcast episodes tethered to a mobile device doing exactly that. And it kind of blows my mind how fast it is. And then I'm able to do it from like pretty much anywhere. And I won't say in the world because I haven't traveled all around the world, but at least anywhere in Europe, I haven't really had too many challenges. It's pretty crazy how accessible remote work is now, isn't it?
For how much? I'm curious because it's something I would like to try, like working remotely from a camper van. I always use camper van just for traveling and going to surf with friends. But for how many days you can actually like stay there and work and be productive? Or is it like for just a temporary work, like for 5 days or a few days, or you can work from camper van for 1 or 2 months comfortably? What's your experience or opinion?
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for the people that can do like the full-time camper vanning, especially I think a big difference here, a big like factor is if you're doing it alone or with a partner, multiple people. For me, it's quite challenging having a partner, and we also have a big dog in a small space and trying to be productive for a long period of time. So like a week or 2 weeks or something is no problem at all. We did, for some reason, I can't remember if it was 8 weeks or 10 weeks last year, and that was way too much. Like I took a good bit of vacation in the middle of that expat, so I wasn't working for the whole time. But it's great for me for a reset, like a change of pace. I get invigorated by being in a new place and the new scenery, and it really sparks the creativity. But there is a diminishing return that sets in. So I would say like 2 weeks is kind of the top, the max for me.
I can imagine that you had to fight with your partner about who is going to have a call inside of the camper van and who has to go outside, right?
That's the thing. You find yourself, you have to make those trade-offs on every single decision. Like, it's not just like who's going to take a shower and then who's not, and who's going to like have coffee and who's not, who's going to take the call, who's going to, go walk the dog. And again, every single decision, you find yourself discussing every single decision. It gets a little heavy. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you, but it is a bit to juggle. Do you have a camper van as well, Peter?
No, I had. That was my first car. I never had like real car, like for people. The first car I had was a camper van, and I bought it together with a friend of mine to just go to travel, to mainly spend time in at south of France, north of Portugal, Spain, and basically surfing. We're sleeping in the camper van, sometimes going with friends together, and I have amazing memories. We did the trip from Bratislava, from Slovakia. The longest one was we went to the south of Spain, Huelva, and then from there by ferry to Canary Islands. So we left it there, and the plan was that it never happened. We had the plan that let's continue back to Africa, Senegal, with some ferry and make it to the Cape Town, like the south. And that was like a dream. We were still at the university, and we planned to do it one summer, but it ended up that we just used that camper van in Canaries. We were traveling to Canaries to surf, and every time we came, we just used the camper van, and we had it parked there. And then we just decided one day that, okay, it causes more problems than it brings benefits. So we decided to sell it. So that's my experience with the camper van. But I never worked from there. And I think it was also at the time when it was not the thing, that it was like in between 2011 until 2013.
Oh man, you were doing it early before it was cool.
And it was also it didn't look so cool. It was just like old Volkswagen, but not those really old ones that look really cool. It was from 94, so it looked relatively modern, but it was still 20 years old van. And I since then I have also some blocker with having a car. Like, I don't want to have a car because I had so many headaches with this camper van. Like, there was always something not working. So I'm kind of against the cars. That's maybe why I live in Amsterdam, that I go everywhere by bike or by walk, and I'm using the car sharing, so I don't need to own a car.
You know what? I have a desire to not own a car as well. One of the things that I really love about living in Europe is that I don't need a car. Like, I have a camper van now, and that's a toy. It's an extra thing that helps me travel. But that's something I think coming from America, and like you just grow up needing a car, and I really love not having a car. And I find it really funny that I have this camper van now, because my first camper van experience sounds like it was very similar to yours. It was also a Volkswagen, and it had tons of problems. I think I've told the story on this podcast before, but like essentially just ended up on tons of tow trucks and fell apart, ended up getting to Ireland and selling it there. So I sold it on another island after deciding it wasn't worth it anymore. And anyway, I mean, it was just a bit of a disaster, but also had dreams of doing these like long cross-continent camper vans trips. And that one, driving to the southern tip of Africa, would be completely epic. Do you know anybody that's actually done that?
Not really. No. Maybe there are some people like doing it as an adventure expedition, but the way how we traveled was that's what I loved about traveling with camper van, that we didn't have a plan. Maybe we had the plan that we knew what is the end destination, but we didn't really know exactly how to get there. And we didn't have plan that, okay, we need to stay 3 days here and 5 days in San Sebastian and 3 days in Bilbao. No, we were just like, oh, we like it here. We like Biarritz. Let's stay here for more days, and this is how you travel. And I think when you go to Cape Town, you have to plan it better also because of the security and so we were probably not the best type of people at the time to plan such a trip. So maybe it's for good that we didn't decide to go.
Probably so. Yeah, probably in the end, one of those experiences that's nice to dream about, and who knows how it would have turned out. It's cool that took you to the Canary Islands, and it sounds like, I mean, I know about your business, which we're we're going to get into here with Surf Office, and I'm super excited to learn a lot more about it because it's something that I think is such a cool experience, and the origin story is something that I know a little bit about, but I don't know all the details of. So I want to ask you about that. But is that sort of how you found, like, chasing surf, sort of how you found the Canary Islands, or were you already aware of the Canary Islands, already spending time there, and then discovered a passion for surfing? Because it sounds like that's been a core part of your journey and story.
No, my passion for surfing actually started earlier. I lived in Barcelona for a few months. I was doing their internship, and a friend of mine, it's actually the guy with who I later, a couple of years later, bought the camper van. He just came to visit me for a week, but he stayed for 1 month, and he told me that he tried surfing in France, in Biarritz, and we should go together, and because it's amazing. And we just bought the tickets for a bus from Barcelona to San Sebastian, and then from San Sebastian we use some train, and we get to Biarritz, and we just bought in Decathlon. We bought some equipment for camping, rented the surfboards, and that's how I started to surf. And since then I've been obsessed by it, or I love the combination of traveling and doing some sport activities. So every summer or every other opportunity I had to travel and to go surf. Since then, then Canary Islands, because they are the place where you can go to surf during the winter and the weather is still very nice, and that's exactly the place where you want to be during the winter if you like surfing in Europe. Or you can go somewhere else, to Mexico or Bali or Morocco, but in Europe that's the place to be during the winter.
Yeah, I've fallen in love with kind of spending at least like a part of my winter in the Canary Islands. It's just an awesome place. I'm fascinated by like the different terrain. Like you can be on these tiny islands that you can drive across in like an hour and see like volcanoes and like volcanic mountains that are like look like Mordor, and like green lush hills and cliffs, and then beautiful water and waves and beaches. And it's like, I don't know, it's just they're a crazy set of islands with so much to offer.
I agree. Which one is your favorite?
I mean, I've visited 3: Tenerife, Gran Canaria, and La Palma. And I mean, the crazy thing is like they're all like relatively similar and relatively distinct in certain ways, and I like them all for different things. So I mean, it's super. I'm sure it's for you as the same for you. Like kind of hard to say. I had a great experience in La Palma. It was like the La Isla Bonita, just like really laid back and chill. I was coming from Valencia and like the hectic city, and just it was a very laid back experience. But I mean, I could make a hard case for loving any of them, honestly.
This is the answer all Canarians want to hear. So don't change it. But you are right. When I moved to Gran Canaria, my plan was visit all the islands. So there are officially 7, but you can count 8 because there is one smaller island north of Lanzarote. So if you count 8, I visited 7 of them. So the one that is missing is La Gomera. And exactly what you say, that each island is different and they are all beautiful. So there is not like the best island. There is best island for specific thing. If you want to surf or if you want to hike, each island is different. But from those 3 that you mentioned, like I love 3 of them, all 3 of them, but La Palma is somehow magical. That I remember I've been already only once, and we did a lot of hiking, and it was amazing.
How long did you live in the Canary Islands, or like, I don't know how you define live, but I mean, how many years were you spending there?
I spent there 2 years in total when I lived there, but besides of that, I spent there, let's say in total 3 years or 3.5. So with the visiting later, but like full time, I lived there for 2 years. But the time, like it's very slow there. I have a feeling that it's like 4 years somewhere else.
There's like a Canary Island time warp that we enter. It does slow down.
I think it's great when you are older and you have family with kids. I think it's an amazing place to live and spend more time. But I moved there when I was, I think, 27, 28, and it was a bit slow for me, you know.
Yeah. It's a chill mindset. You have to go there with the right idea about like what you want. And so what I find really interesting, if I understand it correctly, and I'll probably just ask you to like just tell the story, but like it sounds like you were there in Gran Canaria, I believe, and wanted to have some place to work and surf, and thus Surf Office was born. Is that more or less correct?
Yeah, more or less you are right.
Tell the story better than me. I shouldn't have even tried to paraphrase.
You said it correctly. It's a short version for sure. I worked for moving to Gran Canaria. I visited it a couple of times because of these camper van trips I told you about. And I worked at that time before moving to Gran Canaria. I worked in Czech Republic in Prague for one tech company and as a user experience designer. And I just realized that I worked there for 2 years and I went to the office, so it was not a remote job. There were actually not very many remote jobs at the time. And I just realized that I can do this remotely. I don't need to go to the office because I interacted mainly with developers. They didn't want to have meetings with me. They appreciate the communication by the async, by email or by chat, whatever. And they replied to me whenever they have time. Now what is becoming like kind of a norm, but at the time was like, okay, so I don't need to meet them. If I don't need to meet them, I don't need to be in Prague. If I don't need to be in Prague, where I could be? And I thought like, oh, I would like to be in Canary Islands. And it sounded like a crazy idea to go to Canary Islands. And I talked to my boss like about this thing, and he was very skeptical about my productivity and so. And I told him, look, if it's not going to work well, you can call me anytime and I will buy the flight the next day and I will come back to Prague. And he couldn't say no, and it worked well. And I had this idea before that I would like to move to Canaries and start this as a kind of side project, hobby project to create something like a co-working, co-living space. Even I didn't call it at that time co-working, co-living space. Other people told me that I should call it this way because that's how it's called.
I have this concept where people like work from the same place and like maybe they live there. I don't know. Crazy idea.
I just didn't want to work from there alone, like, so it was very small. I just rented one apartment and another apartment and the workspace was basically like a garage converted into the workspace and yeah, people started to come and I got its office. So there was this idea that, people go to surf and to work and yeah, it was fun. I have so many good memories about those 2 years in Gran Canaria, and I met so many good friends that I'm still in contact with until now. It was definitely like I would recommend it to anyone who not to start the business, but with the intention. It was also my intention to make a lot of friends, a lot of international friends. Like in 2 years, you meet just, I don't know, 1,000 people. And of course, you are not friends with all of them. But if you meet, it's about the quantity. If you meet 1,000 people, you probably are going to make 100 friends. And yeah, that was the idea. And it worked out. We opened another one in Lisbon, another location. I moved to Lisbon, so then I moved in Lisbon for 2 years, and then we slowly I can continue with the story like until now that we basically started to get more and more companies, remote companies, contacting us like, hey, we need to organize these offsites retreats for our teams, and we had teams from Automatic and TopTal and, like this first evangelist of remote work. And I thought like, oh, this is interesting. Like, why we don't do just this? This is the future. I just saw it as like, this is the future, And I was so engaged in the conversations with these people that I remember that we had this first group from Automatic WordPress guys that they were telling me about the Slack, what they are using for communication. And nobody was using Slack. It was completely new thing. And I was like, oh, why are you using it? How does it work? And yeah, I was like, okay, we are going to use Slack as well. And
when was this, Peter? Like roughly?
The 2000 with this Slack, I think was in 2015.
I mean, that doesn't, like when you say 2015, it doesn't sound like that long ago. But in this time warp that we're talking, two time warps, time warp of Gran Canaria and time warp of just like remote work and the quick evolution that's happened overnight, it's like, that seems like decades ago in some ways. Like, I mean, that's true pioneer work at 2015.
For me, it was impressive that what these companies were doing. And it was very clear that this is going to be the future. I just didn't know. I expected that it will take at least 10, 15 years, like to change the mindset of people. But of course, COVID speed up all of these transitions, and now every tech company is basically remote. So it was a good decision that in 2017 we dropped the concept of co-working and co-living for individuals. So we had individual people visiting, and we've started to focus only on companies and made it more professional. Started to work with the hotels and expand it to more locations. So that's what we are doing right now.
Man, it was that pivot strictly a business decision, or was there any other element to it that called to you?
I must say that I was there on site, for this co-working, co-living, and it was basically for more than 3 years. I've been doing like on-site support, managing the property and so. And I don't know, people who don't have experience with such a thing, like managing like little guest house, the same as me, I didn't have such experience before. They think that it's easy, like you can do it, like you just rent the building and then and you create a community. Everybody's talking about community. Man, it's a lot of work, and I was basically burnt out. I just didn't want to do it anymore, like to be on site and do everything by myself. And I was thinking, okay, I learned a lot about how to do this, and started to think, okay, how I can do this with other companies, hotels that are actually operating the property. I didn't want to operate it, and I also didn't see it scalable. Like, okay, how we can add another building? We need to sign the lease, and it was there are a lot of headaches with the landlords, with a lot of things that can happen to property. So now, like when someone is coming to me, like I want to open a co-living space and asking me for some ideas or advice, I just drop some things what can happen. And if they realize it, like for instance, the internet doesn't work, and people who work remotely and they need internet, and if the internet doesn't work for 15 minutes, they're going to kill you, like when you are at home and the internet doesn't work, can happen because of the provider, whatever. You go for a walk, you are going to make a coffee and you hope that it will start to work. It's not such a big deal. You apologize to your colleague, should have a meeting or something. But if you have 20 people in the workspace, so because of this, we developed like also a lot of ideas, a lot of processes that, for instance, for internet, we just contracted the internet from two providers, and to have like two setups for internet. And if it doesn't work one, you can connect to another one. And like nobody is going to do that in the whole like hotel or co-working space. Why would you pay for another internet connection? But it's not a big investment, it's just like one line more. It's not a lot of money for the value what you provide. And we had like a lot of these little hacks what we developed over the years, and I thought we can actually use them working with other hotels and partners, and to teach them how to provide better infrastructure for these retreats. It was definitely a useful experience.
I was reading actually one of your articles you wrote about like kind of coaching facilities on how to be retreat ready, like how to, kind of prep themselves for being able to accept, companies that want to come do their offsites there. Because I agree with you. Like, I think, you were saying this years ago, like this is the future. And I believe that future has arrived, and that the offsite, the team retreat, this is kind of like the return to office. This is like a core part of how these distributed teams of all nature are going to build team culture and camaraderie and push big ideas forward. So that future has arrived now, and there are a lot of people, individuals, companies out there, and venues included in that are wanting a piece of that pie, right? Mm-hmm. And saying, yeah, we can do that. We cater to this type of company all the time. Sure, we can cater to team offsites and team retreats and things like that. And the truth is like a lot of venues aren't really set up for this, and that there's not a lot of expertise often in running these things well. Is that fair to say, in your opinion?
Absolutely. That's our biggest struggle, to find the right venues. And not only, it's almost impossible to find the venues with the right setup and everything what we expect from the venue to host offsites. It's even difficult to find the venues that have open mindset to change things, like we work with the hotels that we already host there a couple of retreats, and they see that, okay, Suroffice can bring them a lot of business, but we want from them some changes to improve the internet connection, or to change if the hotel has 3 meeting rooms or 5 meeting rooms, to dedicate one to Suroffice and design it maybe in a different way, because traditionally the hotels receive the corporate customers for kind of like workshops and presentations, and they are not used to, like, we still experience it, that they are shocked that oh, but these people that were working on the laptops for 5 days. I was like, yes, that's exactly what all the groups Serve Office is going to send you are going to do. That, yeah, there is maybe some presentation of the CEO here and there, but it's mainly about just working together. And you, Chase, I've been following you on Twitter, and there is this super interesting framework you came with, like how to divide the time during the retreat between the activities that are work related and not work related. And we have been seeing a huge shift from companies that came for retreat just to have some presentations and kind of like workshops, and because they realize that they can do it async, they can do it on Google Docs or on Slack or on Zoom, and it's like you don't want to waste that precious time during the retreat. And we see a huge shift that the companies are doing more like a team building, but more like focus like how to create the environment for employees that they can just like chat together about whatever they end up talking about the work and their projects. And it can be work, so that you need like some work setup where you are just with the laptop, like in the co-working space, but you can interrupt other people and some others join and start to talk about something, or just going for a walk together and chat. And this is like way more important than like having some presentation and the projector, and this type of the audiovisual setup that what most hotels are focused on. Like they expect that this is the corporate customer and this is how should work. So that's like a long answer to your question. I saw that you organized retreat recently in Austria. Like because I saw that you were posting about this framework, how to divide the time before. Like did it work for the Doist retreat, or you see it differently?
Yeah, this is something that I just genuinely love doing. I feel so lucky. It's like a core part of my job now, because I get to really think about how to do it at a really high level. So I read a lot and follow other people like yourself and the content that you put out there, and try to take from everybody their different concepts, because, I guess there's no like one right way to do a retreat, for instance. But like in our case, like at Doist, we're, like some of the core fundamentals of the company are like, we're super asynchronous, like very far on one end of the spectrum in terms of asynchronous. So we have very few meetings. We're completely distributed, and I think every third person is from a different country. So we have like almost nobody even in the same country. We have very few virtual meetings. So like everything we do is hyper optimized for asynchronous. And I would argue like too much in some cases, like we need to pull it back in some ways. And so our retreat for us is like maybe different from a lot of some other companies, in that like we're really just like focused on using this time to connect with each other and provide opportunities for that serendipitous conversation that we don't get to have in the virtual world, like the downsides of fully distributed work. So exactly as you said, like we like it's very tempting to be like, okay, we're going to be in one place for a week once a year, like let's conquer our biggest problem. Let's do lots of brainstorming, because that can be better in a virtual environment, or let's do a 1 week hackathon. Like we have these ideas, let's do these workshops. But what we found is that actually like we don't end up getting a ton out of them. Like there's value there for sure, but there's also value doing that async and virtual. And then so weighing those two things out, it's not like overwhelmingly better when we do it together. But what is overwhelmingly better is that connection, that team building, that having fun together, that getting to know one of your teammates that you never otherwise would have a chance to talk to because they work on the other side of the world or whatever. So we really just like re-optimized everything for that experience, and then like sprinkle in some work here and there. And I get it, that's not going to work for everybody. Like a lot of people would say that's crazy, it's a waste of money. You got everybody together, like you got to get something out of it. And I think we do. But yeah, that's been the way that it's worked out for us. We had a blast. We went to we rented a small village in the Austrian Alps and just hung out in the Alps and did a bunch of mountain activities, hiking and paddleboarding, and went all in on like costumes and traditional lederhosen and stuff, and just had fun and enjoyed spending some time together.
I saw some pictures. It looked amazing. 100% agree with you. It's also like I see the evolution with our own Serve Office retreats, because we are We're also a remote team in some way, very similar to do is what you described, that basically every person is from a different country. So we are 17 people, and I don't think there are more than 2 people from the same nationality. So it's like really like a interesting mix. And maybe it's coming from me, but I believe that there are more people in the team as well who don't like the meetings and push the async communication. So we don't have very many meetings. Like we have all hands because we decided that it's good to have all hands, but we don't have it every week. We have it just every 2 weeks, and we try to avoid like most of the meetings. So the meetings I have with the team per week are maybe like 2-3, but then I like to talk with the customers or with other people. And when we organized retreats before, it was more focused on we should come with some big ideas and we should brainstorm. And we played these games that everyone had to come with the ideas for if you have a budget 10,000 euros and if you have a budget 1 million, like what would you change in the company, and this type of exercises. And the end of the retreat, we came with some OKRs. Basically, that was the idea. And everyone was exhausted. There was not so much team building, and there was not so much of that serendipity time you mentioned. And we tried to do it differently this time. We had after COVID, for the first time, we had the retreat in the last month, actually, like 3 weeks ago in Ericeira, and we tried to do it completely differently, and it worked out. Some people were surprised, like why we don't have some presentations or why we don't. We had some brainstormings and discussions, but it was more about the company culture, where we would like to go, like what's the direction, how we are committed to what we are doing, and so. People sharing their own stories, but it was not focused on. We were not focused on coming with some big ideas. And my conclusion about it was also like, if you come to the retreat and you don't know what are these big problems you have to solve, then there is a problem, right? Like it's not something you should figure out during the retreat. Everyone should know what are the biggest problems, maybe their area, their department, and focus on them. And retreat shouldn't be a place to figure out like what are these problems. You can discuss them, of course, but it was difficult. Like, you organize a retreat. It's like everyone flies from different place. It's a big time commitment for everyone. It costs a lot of money. You have the internal pressure to do some important work, but actually it's not so important. Important is to focus on that team bonding.
Yeah, I find it really funny because it's like, what can happen is you can start to think of that week. Let's say you even do it more than most companies and you do quarterly offsites or retreats. You can start to think of that week as like, that's our get shit done week. That's when we really tackle things. And then what does that turn the other 11 weeks in the quarter into? I think it should be inverted, and we should be optimizing the work for those 11 weeks per quarter that you're getting a lot done. And then that 1 week where you get to fill in the gaps. And so I've seen that happen, where it says, oh, we'll tackle that at the offsite. And it's like, well, the offsite's in 4 weeks. Like, why don't we tackle it right now? And that's one thing that I will push back on with people sometimes when they're talking about these strategies is like, I do get that you can get stuff done during that time, but I'm always worried when I start to hear my team say, oh, we'll tackle that when we get to the retreat. And I say, no, because we don't want to show up to the retreat and start figuring stuff out then. So, yeah.
But on the other hand, I see this working, like if you want to focus on some problem and brainstorm, this is great for smaller retreats, like team retreats of departments or functional areas of the company. Then it's great. You decide that you're joined with the marketing team and you want to decide like, okay, what are our customer acquisition channels and what we want to optimize, what channels we want to add. And this type of like brainstorming, it's great to do during the retreat. But when you are meeting the whole company, it can be a waste of time to do this type of work.
We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This season is brought to you by my good friends over at Insured Nomads. They're the absolute best in the business when it comes to providing health, travel, and medical insurance for nomads, expats, and really just all forms of world travelers. I know insurance is often something that's overlooked when we're fantasizing about traveling the world, but it's absolutely necessity that we address this because often the policy you have in your home country isn't going to cover you while you're abroad. And it's also a requirement, as a lot of people may not realize, to actually buy private travel or expat insurance, as it's called sometimes, to obtain a visa or even enter certain countries. So fortunately, there are companies like Insured Nomads to help us with this. Not only do they have excellent coverage and great prices, but they're also providing a first-class experience with additional perks and best-in-class technology via their app. It's an amazing experience. I can't recommend it enough. Now, this is a company that was built by world travelers for world travelers. So they know what it's like to find yourself in a difficult medical situation abroad, and they want to keep you from having that same bad experience. So the next time you're planning a trip abroad, whether it's for a week or a lifetime, check out Insured Nomads via the link in the show notes. If you've made it this far into the episode and you're still enjoying yourself, then I would love to ask a quick favor. Open up the app that you're using to listen to this podcast and leave a quick review. You can do this in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and really just about any platform that allows podcast listening now. If you can't find that in the interface of the app, then scroll down in the show notes and find ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, and you should be able to leave it from there. Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate it and hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Actually, I think that would be an interesting segue. I would love to illustrate this for somebody listening who's, now got a general idea of what you guys do, and they agree with us that you and I, that retreats are awesome and they should be a core part of how any kind of remote distributed team is functioning. But how might Surf Office insert themselves into this if, I'm company X and okay, great, I want to start doing offsites and retreats. Surf Office, what do I do? How do they engage with you, and what does that process look like, and what value are you adding?
There is interesting journey that I thought retreats, this is something what any company needs, right? Like you meet somewhere, you have like a focus time for your employees and team bonding and so and so. And then I realized that not every company needs that. Remote companies need that. And we don't need to reach out to them because they reach out to us. So if you need it, you will find Surf Office. Like I had a call with one customer this week and she told me that, I want to organize retreat by myself. And I was just like Googling a lot of different things and Surf Office popped up everywhere. So I decided to contact you. We create a lot of content for companies. So this is also like our strategy or approach. We build a lot of content about how to organize a company retreat. And there are all these little nuances you are very familiar with because you organize these things in Doist. But what is the right time to do it? Like how to choose the location, how to internally coordinate the best dates, it sounds like it's not difficult, but it's extremely difficult because a lot of people they want to be involved in the decision and so we create a lot of content, and our idea is that we want to provide we basically provide all our know-how, and if you want to organize a retreat by yourself, go ahead. But we always say but if you don't want, we can do it for you. And we have a lot of customers who read our content, our ebooks, our guides, and then they organize retreat by themselves, and they come to us that, can you do it? Can you do the next one for us with Surf Office? And the reason, so I'm pitching like what are the pain points, like why they come to us to organize a retreat. So the pain points are basically that it takes a lot of time to organize it. So if you are in the company, usually there is no person in the company who is dedicated just to organize a company retreat. So you have many other responsibilities, and these other responsibilities are usually more important than organizing a retreat. And you have to prioritize, and this retreat planning, it can take something between like part-time, but before the retreat, like 1 month, it can be easily full-time, and you don't have basically time for anything else. So that's one reason. If there are more people in the company, they can maybe divide the work and also diversify that. What if you are the organizer of retreat and you are going to be sick, like who is going to do it instead of you? So that's one thing, like saving the time. And another thing, what I think is maybe even more important, is that we help you to find the venues and the vendors that are trusted, because we already work with them and we tested them. And even if you are lucky and you find a good venue, the accommodation for the retreat and the internet works and all these things works, just one little thing that you don't consider as important, for instance, I don't know, transfers from the airport or some team building activity doesn't work, it can quite ruin your retreat. It will not ruin it completely, but it will create very bad experience. And we just try to minimize or completely remove this type of situations. Customers sometimes don't realize it, that for instance, I don't know, like we have a book transfers and the day before the retreat, the transfer company said that they messed up with the dates and the transfers are canceled, like they cannot do anything. So, but we have some other backups and we can figure it out in very short time. And the customer doesn't know there is just someone bus waiting at the airport, Sometimes we have this problem to explain that these are the benefits of organizing retreat with Suroffice, but you very often you just don't see them. Yeah. And then, and we basically try to focus on the infrastructure. So all the logistic related to the retreat. So we are not going to tell you what you should do during the retreat, if to focus on team bonding or organize workshops. So you can focus on this part, because that's another thing what I found quite difficult when you organize retreat by yourself, that you have to focus a lot on logistics, and then you have less time to focus, okay, what are we going to do the first day, second day? And that's the most important thing, right? And these are more or less the benefits of Suroffice. And then for larger companies, the biggest benefit is that it can scale, because you start to organize retreats and you have more teams, you have dozens or hundreds of teams, and what you should do to build some department inside of the company that is going to take care of the events. Is it your core activity, core business? Doesn't make much sense to do it. So let's work someone like Suroffice that focuses only on this one thing.
And how many locations are you guys in now? Because as I understand it, you have like an inventory of different types of venues, like not just, we could start at the country and city level, maybe there, but then kind of disperse down to like the types of locations. Because I think that's also something that sets you apart from, anybody could go to Marriott or Hilton or something and just, book a 30-room block at the W in whatever place around the world. But you're looking at unique locations, I think, and the location of those where they are in the world, but also in the venue itself, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Right now we have officially on the website, I think 26 locations, but we have maybe another 30 locations that we are offering to our existing customers if they are interested in. So there is constant testing of the new locations, and we just add them based on the demand. And of course, there is a Pareto law that some locations they work more and some locations they work less. Like for instance, I always thought Madeira is such a cool place. I've been there many times. This is amazing location for company retreats. And I think we organized just one small team retreat there until now, since we had it it was one of the first locations when we started to focus on retreats. So since 2017, so for 5 years, because it's just so difficult to get there,
Yeah.
And maybe that was not clear for us at that time, but now we focus on how to get there. But even because when we organize retreats for larger groups, because we started with team retreats of 8, 10, 12 people, but now we organize also a lot of events for 300, 400 people. And you have to go to these bigger hotels because you cannot find some cool alternative venue for 400 people. Even a lot of companies, they think that you can, we have a lot of requests we are 300 people, can you find me something like glamping but not far from the airport? We can do full buyout but only for 2 nights, a lot of requirements, and they literally describe something what doesn't exist. So you need to go a bit to the compromise, and working with the bigger hotels is actually it's a good thing. But I don't know what's your experience, but I was very surprised that it's also difficult to find these big hotels. It's not that you can go to any big hotel and organize offsite there. No, we work with also bigger chains, and they can have portfolio of 500 hotels, but only let's say 10 or 15 are actually good for company retreats because of the distance from the airport, the setup of the meeting spaces. Some hotels, for instance, they don't have on-site restaurant, and they don't offer catering. So what are you going to do with 100 people? Are you going to order with Uber Eats? No, there is no Uber Eats in that location. So you need to have a certain setup. So even with larger hotels, it is difficult. And we work very closely with them, and we research all their hotels. We visited their hotels, and we know what are these few hotels that are good fit for offsite. So you can figure it out by yourself, but it will take you a lot of time, and you probably have some other things to do at your job.
As you and I can attest to, these things take a ton of time, resources, energy, and I think the key, the one thing that maybe gets mentioned haven't or failed to mention in that list sometimes is like creativity. Like if this is going to be a core part of these companies' DNA, if you want to do these at a really high level, you can't just go to the Hampton Inn off of I-40 and, the local steakhouse and like expect people to walk away feeling invigorated. This is like maybe your once a year or twice a year, 3 times a year opportunity to bring people to a really cool place, to enjoy themselves, to make it easy and convenient so that they don't leave feeling exhausted and tired from all the travel. You want people to be really pumped about going to these and also leave really feeling more connected to their teammates, to the company, to the mission, all this stuff. And so to do that, I think it really takes a professional. Like it takes someone who loves it and also who has the vision and the connections for creating an awesome event. And it's not just like I heard somebody say, like, don't leave your offsite to Bob in accounting. Like Bob in accounting didn't sign up to be an offsite leader and to create an awesome event. Bob in accounting signed up to be awesome at accounting. So let him do that and then find someone that can do this really well for you. I've also found like it can, it makes sense financially as well. Like you have connections, where to go. You're going to cut out a lot of those extra costs that people are going to, the mistakes that they're going to make along the way. And so I find that usually pays for itself, by hiring a professional like you guys.
That we also found that we like our niche is also somewhere in more like I would call it affordable retreats, because there are a lot of agencies that focus on very customized premium luxury retreats. We are not really in this segment, so we focus on being like functional, affordable, but still like with very good standard and experience. But we don't do like, I don't know, like you want to have a logo of your company on the wall of the hotel. I saw some companies doing this type of things. Like, nah, we don't really do that, So because, and also these things are extremely expensive, so the retreat and there are customers, there are companies that have budget for it. That's fine. But we found out that most of the companies, they want to do something just good, functional, meeting people, have great food, staying at a great venue, and ideally not spend so much money on it. Like they have some budget, but they don't want to like, okay, we don't want to go crazy. Like there are very few customers, they say like, oh, we want to go crazy. We have few, and these are funny stories, but usually is opposite. And and I believe that Surov is if you want to organize this type of retreat, I believe that Surov is not more expensive or not much more expensive than if you organize it by yourself. Because if you organize it by yourself, you are never going to get a very good rate from the hotel. You run also to a lot of risk. I heard stories that, for instance, hotel can cancel your reservation like 1 week before the retreat, because they will probably not do it for a group of 100 people. But if you are a group of like 20 people and you have offsite and they get a better booking because you booked it like 8 months in advance, and you get like better rate because they didn't know how many bookings they are going to have. And now last minute they get like amazing booking for your date. Like it's very unprofessional, but there are some hotels who are going to cancel your reservation. And because they know that you didn't book through booking.com or some platform, you cannot leave them the review. You can write about it on Twitter, but nobody cares, And they will just make more money. And Surov is like, until something like this happens to you, like you don't realize the value of Surov, because these things are not happening to us because we have the contracts, we have the partnerships with the hotels, and they are not going to do that. And if they would do, we would find you some other venue at the same location, and you will not even, maybe not. So these are like a lot of things like hidden that can be very costly. So the retreat then can be very, very expensive. But if you organize a budget retreat, like a lot of companies start this way. For us, the same. We rented some Airbnb in Prague for the first Sur office for our own retreat. And you can make it very cheap and cool. Once you scale and you have like more than, let's say, 15, 20 people at the event, you cannot do this like crazy budget things that people cook for themselves, and
it gets a little chaotic at that point. And also, like, I think it could start to like detract from the experience of the whole entity when you're not like optimizing it for the group. We do 2 different types of retreats at Duist. We do what we call mini retreats, which are like the individual team ones. Those are pretty budget friendly, or like the budget's pretty tight for those. So they sound more like that. And I think that's cool. You have that element where you're like cooking dinner together or sharing an Airbnb. It's pretty pretty intimate. And then we have like our company retreat, which is the whole company. And that one's obviously structured very different. But I think I've really enjoyed something. And it sounds like, we share this, like the dichotomy between those different types. Like there is no like one way to do this. There's a lot of different methods you can place depending on your budget and what you're trying to accomplish and the distribution of your team. And there's so many different avenues you can go that can all work in their own individual way, I guess.
Absolutely. Say that we never try to convince anyone like you should organize retreat with us. We just place like these are the benefits, and if you understand the value, you can do it with us. But when I, for instance, it happens very often that you talk with the customer and they're like, but I can do this by myself, and my reaction is always like, do it by yourself,
go for it.
Try it. And I'm sure that it's going to be good, like it's going to be great. And you will, if something goes wrong, you will improvise and you will create like great experience for your team. I'm pretty sure about it. But depends like how much stress it's going to be for you and how much improvisation you need to do. And maybe next time you will consider service. But if someone wants to do like different type of retreat or budget one or super custom one, like, you can do it by yourself, and we are happy to provide as I said, like a lot of content what we build exactly for these people who want to do it by themselves, and maybe one day they will decide to do it with us. There are hundreds of ways to organize a retreat, exactly what you said.
Yeah, and there's tons of great content on your website, blog. You also have a podcast, which is absolutely worth checking out. So I'm realizing we're running short on time, and I would love to keep asking you a ton of questions. I want to get to plugging all those places real quick where people can learn more. Before we get to that, I would love to know, you have these 26 locations that you really advertise across on the website, and then these 30 others, and theoretically you could do a retreat anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious, what do you feel makes a really good location for all these people out here who are going to give this a shot on their own? They're planning. I talk to these people almost every single day now, and I know you do as well, that are going, suddenly my team's gone remote and I'm supposed to plan an offsite and I don't really know what I'm doing. So starting at just the very highest level, because I think that's what we have time for here, and where we'll give somebody a jumping and a launching pad to get them started. What do you think makes for a good location, a retreat?
Considering where your team is located and how easy it is to get there, I would say this is the number one thing. We have a tool on the website. When you go and in the top navigation, you find the resources. There is a tool called Location Finder, where you can add where your team is located, where your employees are located, how many of them are located in which location, and it will calculate you the most optimal location for your retreat, or there are more options you will get. And it's exactly designed for remote teams. We connected to the API of kiwi.com, like the search engine for the flights, and we use their engine to calculate this. So this is like a good tool to start with, to see to have like some overview of the locations that are good for your own team. And then I would focus in general especially now, like traveling is crazy. You don't want to have layovers when you go for retreat, because a lot of flights are canceled and delayed, and you will lose your next flight. So you want to focus on what are the locations where most people can get directly by plane. That's number one. And these are usually there are not many of them. Like, for instance, in Europe, if you want to go to like more sunnier locations, you have Lisbon, Madrid, Barcelona, Rome. And if you want to go like more to the north, you have Amsterdam, Paris. Yeah, there are more locations, but there are maybe I don't consider Berlin. I don't consider them so interesting. Like I like Munich, for instance, but I don't think I would organize their company offsite, So that's about like the general location. And then the second important aspect is the location of the venue. You want to be close to the airport. And even you consider it like, we can somehow manage it. Imagine there are some people traveling for 12, 20, 24 hours. They arrive to the airport, they are completely exhausted, they have jet lag. And now do you want to travel with them by bus for 2 or 3 hours somewhere to the venue? No, you want to be maximum 1 hour from the airport. And my advice to you will create better experience if you can do it even less than 1 hour. Like if you, for instance, in Lisbon, it's a very popular location for us because the airport is is small and it's directly in the city. So you fly to Lisbon, and in 10 minutes you can be by Uber in the city center of Lisbon. Barcelona is also
Amazing.
great, but Amsterdam is also great with the airport. But then you have, if you organize retreat in London, you fly to London and you need 3 hours to get to the city. So I would recommend to not focus on with location, like that's maybe the last piece. I would recommend not to focus on, I would like to go here. No, to be more open-minded and pragmatic about where you want to go.
Love it. That's super practical, and as obvious as it might seem to the seasoned veteran, probably something that it can be easily overlooked. So thank you for sharing. I can highly recommend people go check out your website. They're interested in learning more. You have tons of free tools like the one you just mentioned, lots of great content for anybody that just is getting started in this area and looking to take a team abroad to another country. It's a great place to just get started, get your feet wet and learn more. And then if you feel you need some extra help there, the Surf Office team is there to lend a hand. So Peter, thank you so much. This was awesome. I wish that we had endless more time to keep nerding out on company retreats. We'll have to save it for another time. Where can people go learn more about you, the website, any other links that you think people should go to? And we'll also add these to the show notes.
Yeah, the website is surfoffice.com. I'm quite active on Twitter and LinkedIn. So you can find me just by Googling it. My name, Peter Fabor. Yeah, I also started a blog that is focused more on hospitality. And there is, for instance, the article you mentioned, how to build the venue that is ideal for hosting retreats. But I'm writing also about glamping and co-living and all these other experiences I have in hospitality. So yeah, check it out.
Awesome. It's good stuff. I can attest. So thank you for building in public and sharing all that you've learned on this journey. You've come quite a ways from a garage in Gran Canaria to organizing hundreds of retreats across the world and dozens of cities. It's pretty awesome to watch from the outside looking in. So thanks for sharing with us here on About Abroad. I hope to catch up with you somewhere in the world before too long.
Thank you for inviting me. Great chat.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the two following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.